Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dr. Mihaela Kissel, and I'm a program manager with the Micronutrient Forum, specifically the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies initiative. And my primary role is to coordinate the Balanced Energy Protein Dietary Supplementation Technical Advisory Group. And today is my pleasure to welcome the first Coffee and Chai Chat of 2025 with Rimu, Byadya, who is a technical officer at the World Health Organization, and Dr. Ranadip Chowdhury, who is a deputy director and scientist at the Society for Applied Studies in India. Today, our experts will discuss the latest evidence on BEP and its impact on pregnancy outcomes, and then learn from WHO's guidance on implementing BEP in maternal nutrition programs and country experiences in integrating BEP into health and nutrition services. But before we begin, I'd like to go through some housekeeping instructions. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, there are the instructions, but I'll read them for you. So feel free to introduce yourself with your name, organization, and country in the chat. Please write your name and affiliation in the Zoom window and turn on your video if you'd like the session to be more interactive. All participants will be muted during the presentation, but we will be able to unmute themselves during the Q&A. And please raise your hand if you would like to ask questions, but we highly encourage you to type your questions in the chat to facilitate more question and answers. In case you have any technical difficulties, kindly send a direct message to the tech support. And as you were already prompted, this meeting is being recorded. And now we'll start with Dr. Ranadip Chowdhury. Could we move on to the next slide, please? All right, I'll hand it over to you, Ranadip. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mahela, for arranging this webinar on a very important and critical issue, and welcome all. So what I will do in next 4-5 minutes, I will try to give you an overview of this balanced energy protein dietary supplementation during pregnancy as an overall idea about its impact, where we are currently, and what the current evidence is. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about the burden. We all know, but it's always good to revisit the burden. Globally, the global burden of maternal undernutrition remains alarmingly high. As we know that approximately 15% of women of reproductive age group are underweight, 50% are having anemia, and 70% are having micronutrient deficiency. So it's, and in addition to that, there is also a proportion with obesity that I have not mentioned here. But when we talk about these issues in South Asia, as we see from the latest evidence, and that approximately 1 in 10 women are underweight, 1 in 3 overweight, 1 in 10 women are short stature, that is height less than 145 centimeter, 50% anemic, and most importantly, 25% are moderately anemic. So this gives a scenario where this burden highlights that there is a critical need for additional energy, protein, and micronutrients to meet this demand. And also, we need to understand one thing, that this is the burden when women are a reproductive age group and maybe they are non-pregnant. So that means when a woman is entering into a pregnancy, this is the burden. And we all know that pregnancy itself has some additional requirement. So that means we are in a situation where this burden, this group of women are entering into a pregnancy, already they are in a deficient state. And in addition to that, pregnancy is adding additional requirement. So it makes the situation more worse. So how we can, the available evidence say that how we can tackle this situation. Next slide, please. So we know a little bit about all this recommendation. As WHO says the recommendation of the positive pregnancy guideline that came in 2016, then 2020, that antenatal balanced energy protein supplementation, that is called BEP, is advised in settings where low BMI, means BMI less than 18.5, prevalence among women of reproductive age group is 20% or higher. And in addition to that, we all know that in 2016, there was an expert consultation by Gates Foundation who talked about that what should be the constitution of this balanced energy protein supplementation. And it should provide 250 to 500 kilocalorie per daily serving, which should include 14 to 18 gram of protein, and also should have multiple micronutrient, one RDA to one estimated average requirement. And in addition to that, in research context, WHO also suggested to recommend multiple micronutrient supplementation with iron, folic acid, and other essential micronutrient based on rigorous research context. Next slide. So what we know, when we talk about balanced protein energy supplementation, what does that mean? Primarily, it talks about four things. One, fortified lipid based nutrient supplement, whether it could be small quantity or medium quantity. Second, fortified blended foods. Third, milk based beverages. And fourth, local food snacks. And recently, and I will be very grateful to Dr. Kate Davey for his recent scoping review, where they excellently summarized that the balanced energy protein supplementation and its impact. And in that, it came out that the energy provision for all these four kinds of BEP supplementation ranged between 118 to 700 kilocalorie per day, with varying level of protein and micronutrient. But what is the impact? Overall, if we want to summarize the impact, that either any of this balanced energy protein supplementation has a positive impact on gestational weight gain, and in some of these also have impact on improving gestational age, that is increasing the gestational age. In addition to that, this balanced energy protein supplementation has a positive impact on fetal growth, both in terms of birth weight and birth length. And some studies have also shown a long term effect of this balanced energy protein supplementation on future infant growth and child growth. So, in summary, what we know, the evidence currently we have, that different components of balanced protein energy supplementation have a positive role on both maternal, infant, and future child outcome. Next slide, please. And I think this is my last slide. But in all, though we have evidence, but the issue which persists, and probably we will discuss a little bit about today on these issues. Number one, what is the ideal definition of balanced energy protein supplementation? Because we all know the definition what we have now, this is less than 25% energy should come from protein, came a long back. Number two, what should be the other components of this balanced energy protein supplementation? Number three, do we need micronutrient blended? Because currently we don't have evidence where we can say that balanced energy protein supplementation compared with a routine care where multiple micronutrient supplementation are given, what is the evidence? Currently we don't know. So there are a lot of issues are there that we need to explore and where we need studies. We have some evidence, but we have also some lack of evidence. And today from this discussion, we may come up with some potential solutions or potential research questions which may build to see that where is the lack of evidence and how we can improve the current evidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranadip, for the first slides and the information provided. Now I'll turn it over to Rimu from the WHO. Over to you, Rimu.
Thank you so much, Mihaela, for your kind introduction. And thank you so much, Ranadip, for setting the scene. This is such an honor to be invited to the Coffee and Chai Chat today to talk about WHO guidance on balanced energy and protein dietary supplementation and the upcoming implementation guidance that WHO is working. So Ranadip has actually set the scene. Now we know what we know about balanced energy and protein supplementation from research. So in the next 5 minutes, I would try to focus on the WHO current recommendation and what would be the aim and target audience for the WHO's upcoming implementation guidance, and try to give you a brief overview of the content that we are looking at for the implementation guidance. So next slide, please. So you've seen from the last presentation that WHO ANC recommendations for a positive pregnancy experience, which was published in 2016, that's where, which has a package of recommendations, interventions. It includes 49 recommendations. And among 49 recommendations, you have 14 recommendations on nutrition. If you look at this 14 recommendations on nutrition, you find that there are 3 recommendations talking about energy and protein intake. The first one talks about nutrition education and counseling to increase protein, energy and protein intake in undernourished populations. And the second one talks about BEP dietary supplements, which is the focus of today's discussion. And that's what we will discuss in this slide. And there is another recommendation, actually, which is recommended against, it's high protein supplementation. So that's not a it's a intervention not recommended in the ANC guideline. This is just to give you a broad overview of the ANC guideline. So if I want to read the recommendation, just wanted to have the screenshot here, the exact wording, so that we get the main message across. The recommendation reads, in undernourished populations, balanced energy and protein dietary supplementation is recommended for pregnant women to reduce the risk of stillbirths, small for gestational age units, and it's a context-specific recommendation. So if you go to remarks, I will not go one by one, but just wanted to lay the basis of this recommendation and the context of this recommendation. This recommendation is for population or settings with a high prevalence of undernourished pregnant women, and not for individual pregnant women. So undernourished can be defined by low BMI and anything above 20 or above. Prevalence of underweight women is considered a high prevalence of underweight, and 40% or higher is considered very high prevalence. And in situations where you don't have access to measurement on BMI, you could look into mid-upper arm circumference. That could be also a useful tool. So this is just to give you the context. If we go to the next slide, you will see the remarks still continue, really talking about the context of the recommendation and what are the additional things you need to consider when you go to implement balanced energy and a protein dietary supplementation. So based on this recommendation from 2016, if we go to the next slide, WHO brought together an expert group in 2023 to really help and advise on the development of implementation guidance, looking at BEP dietary supplementation during pregnancy. And it's really based on the recommendation I have just shown. So this is just to clarify, it's not a recommendation. The recommendation is there. This implementation guidance that WHO is working on, it's really aims to offer practical guidance on implementing BEP dietary supplementation, really to answer some of the questions and challenges and barriers that implementers and program managers face in implementing BEP dietary supplementation. So the target audience for this implementation guidance is the same as the ANC guideline. It's the national and local level public health policymakers, whether it's someone sitting in the Ministry of Health or Nutrition, or someone at the district level, wherever the decision making happens in terms of ANC and maternal nutrition. And it could be also NGOs who are taking on programs on maternal nutrition, BEP supplementation. If we move to the next slide, which is my last slide, I just wanted to spend a bit of time here talking about what can we expect from this implementation guidance. So WHO BEP expert group has been advising us on the different aspects of the implementation guidance. Starting from the scope of the guidance, what are the key questions? Some of the questions was actually mentioned by Ranadip earlier. we are looking into these questions. What is the composition of BEP supplements? Because we see that they come in different forms, different formats. So this is some of the questions. This is something we are looking at, and we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, looking at what already exists. So Ranadip has referred to the framework and specification from 2017 expert consultation that Gates Foundation has come up with. Building on that, and we are also looking beyond and thinking about what are the additional energy and protein requirements during different stages of pregnancy, especially in situations or settings where increasing dietary intake during pregnancy is not ideal, or you don't see it normally. So what are the additional considerations? Within the nutrition composition, we are also looking at what does it mean for different macronutrient? What does it mean to have, what should be the energy target for this supplement? And what should be different macronutrient target, and not just protein, but also fat, carbohydrates. And what does it mean for micronutrient content? So we're also looking into this aspect and really trying to come up with considerations for programmers and program implementers so that they can make the decisions and to give you the flexibility in a way, because we understand, we acknowledge that the contexts are very different. Even countries are different. Even within countries, the contexts are different. So we're just trying to give as many as options possible for the implementers. And we are also working on some illustrative examples of recipes on locally produced options for BEP supplementation. The other aspect we are looking at in the implementation guidance is the targeting approach. Some of it is clarified in the remarks section, but what does it mean practically? We are saying this recommendation is for populations with undernourished populations, and what kind of population level indicator can you look at? So BMI, you could look into BMI and mid upper arm circumference, MUAC, and then are there additional indicators you could look into to sort of inform your decision when you are deciding on BEP supplementation in your context, and then whether it's at a national level or whether it's a subnational level or local level. And then we are looking into also the data sources that implementers could look into to inform their decision. And then once you have identified your population, looking at the prevalence of undernourishment, what does it mean for individual screening if your resources and capacities allow? So we are also giving guidance for programmers how they can do individual screening within this implementation data. And the last piece we are exploring, we've talked about the composition and who gets it, how to select them, how to enroll pregnant women in the program, sort of speaking. And then what should be the delivery platform? So we are saying the BEP supplementation in the context of routine antenatal care. That's the primary basis. But we are also acknowledge that there could be settings like humanitarian emergencies. Maybe there are other alternative platforms. So we are also including considerations for those platforms, alternative platforms, and who provides actually this supplementation. And the other part we are now looking into is the supply chain aspects of depending on what kind of BEP supplement format you want to employ in your program. So in a nutshell, this is what we are looking at in the implementation guidance, and we are in the drafting mode of this guidance and hoping to publish this. WHO is aiming to publish this guidance later this year with the help of WHO BEP expert group. So that's where I will leave it there, and happy to take any question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rimu, for that insightful presentation, specifically to understand what is coming from the WHO side. And now, as my colleague Rijuta shared in the chat, please type your questions in the chat. We've heard presentations from both speakers. Now we're going to start the Q&A. And to get us started, I'd like to ask Ranadip first, given that he shared the high burden of maternal undernutrition and South Asia. To what extent has BEP dietary supplementation been prioritized by governments in the region? So do you have any insights from India specifically?
Yeah, thank you, Mel. This is a very important question. As I have mentioned, the burden in South Asia. So, in South Asian context, yes, countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, they have their own way of system of BEP supplementation during pregnancy. I will talk little bit about currently what government of India or India is doing. India has a system called Integrated Child Development Scheme, ICDS Center, that is called ICDS. Through that, in during pregnancy, supplementary nutrition are being provided during pregnancy. Currently, the recommendation is that 600 kilocalorie energy and 18 to 20 gram protein throughout pregnancy. And it is currently not based on any risk stratification. So all pregnant women should receive that either as a part of take-home ration or ready to cook food based on different states of India. As you know, the broadness of India. In addition to that, in some of the states like Telangana, one of the states of the southern part of the India, they, in addition to this supplementary nutrition program, they also have come up with a concept called a meal program. So there, in addition to this supplementary program, all pregnant women usually get a full meal through this Anganwadi center or ICDS center, which includes rice, dal, vegetables, milk, and 200 ml of milk and egg during the pregnancy. So this also give them an additional opportunity to replete the additional energy and protein requirement during pregnancy. In addition to this, also there are some co-interventions that they get during pregnancy in addition to BEP, like iron folic acid supplementation, calcium and vitamin D supplementation, and some nutritional counseling. So this is a broad program in India, going all over India from last 4 or 5 decades. It's going well, but yes, one issue is there. Currently, it is not risk stratified based. It is for all. Thank you.
That was very insightful, and to hear that they're so the BEP is in the form of food, not in the form of a manufactured product. You mentioned other co-interventions, like what other vitamins or minerals are given also, if you're aware of that?
Yeah, currently, as a part of India, it's iron and folic acid and calcium and vitamin D. These are the all macro and macronutrients, sorry, micronutrients and minerals are being provided as a part of the national program.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Rimu, do you have any insights on any other countries?
No, thank you. I think Ranadip has covered it really well. I don't have anything to add at this point.
Okay. I could ask, what evidence for you, Rimu, what evidence led to the WHO recommendation to provide antenatal BEP supplementation in settings where low BMI prevalence among women of reproductive age is 20% or higher? What was the rationale for that?
Yeah, so the WHO recommendation 2016 came from a systematic review by Ota and colleagues 2015, which actually looked at the effects of balanced energy and protein supplements compared with no supplementation or placebo. This review included 12 trials, and most data they came from low and middle income countries, including Burkina Faso, Colombia, Gambia, Ghana, just to name India, Indonesia, just to name a few countries. The balanced energy and protein supplements used there were in various forms, including fortified beverages, biscuits, and powders. So that was the basis of the ANC recommendation on BEP supplementation, if you ask me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's very important. And also, to follow up with that, could you clarify why is it not applicable to all pregnant women to receive this intervention?
I think that's a great question, and this is something we get a lot, especially where programs are probably trying to include all pregnant women or depending on their context. Part of the reason why the guideline development group at WHO ANC guideline, they call it GDG, came up with this recommendation, because we all know, Ranadip has mentioned that all pregnant women need additional energy, but we know that many pregnant women will probably have that additional energy and protein needs met from their regular diets. So when you look at this intervention, the idea is to see really who would benefit most from this intervention. And it would be probably who are undernourished. So that was the main idea behind looking at undernourished populations. And then probably if you want to go for individual screening, then it could be underweight women in this context, who actually, the very idea is that who would get most benefit from this intervention. And also thinking about programs, cost effectiveness and all that. Yeah.
That is a very broad but very specific question, and I think our audience appreciate that. We're getting now questions in the chat, so I'm gonna switch over to the chat. I see one question from Julia Rotich from Kenya, from the Ministry of Health, and she asked, what's the minimum duration of using BEP during pregnancy and lactation, and would it apply in food insecure regions with some micronutrient deficiencies as well, and for how long? And I see that Ranadip provided an answer, but if either Ranadip or Rimu want to expand on that, I think the audience would appreciate it.
Yeah. So two things. One, as I mentioned, that pregnancy itself is a condition where you require additional energy, protein, and micronutrient requirement. Number one. Number two, also there are if from my first slide, probably we have understood that approximately 40 to 50% of women, when they are entering into the pregnancy, they are nutritionally depleted condition. So that means one in two women almost are entering pregnancy with a deplete condition, and also during pregnancy there are additional requirement. So that translates that this requirement or this supplementation needs to be throughout the pregnancy, specifically those who are at risk. And then after birth, there is an additional requirement due to lactation. We all know the recommendation related to exclusive breastfeeding. So if we translate that into the duration, so that means during entire pregnancy and at least first 6 months of life after birth, these requirements will be needed because of the various reasons that I've tried to explain.
Thank you, Ranadip. And now, Rimu, could you provide insights on the second part about food insecurity?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add to, I think Ranadip has really given us the rationale, and just wanted to refer to the WHO-ANC guideline. If you will see that WHO-ANC guideline recommends 8 contacts throughout pregnancy, and BEP is recommended in each contact, whether it's counseling and also the BEP supplementation for this context specific for this population. So you could say as soon as you can actually get hold of pregnant women, and then you identify that this is your target population, that's when it starts. I think the other piece of the question is that did I read it okay? Is it what guidance do we have on for food insecure context? Is that what it, or please correct me if I'm wrong.
If BEP would apply in context of food insecure, like if you have a region within a country or several that are food insecure, would you, or with food insecure plus some micronutrient deficiencies, would you also give BEP there?
I think that's a great question, and this is where we see that BEP supplementation are being implemented in many contexts at the moment, right? What we are looking into in the implementation guidance and the kind of considerations we are looking into, we're saying know your context and know your population. So it doesn't necessarily mean you just look at your national. Of course, if you have your data at national level, it's great to have that. But if it is a population that food insecure settings in a small pocket of a country or even emergency situations, and you do have data on that, and that's a place actually, once you identify that you have this prevalence of undernourishment 20% or above, whether it's by low BMI or MUAC, depending on the resources you have available. That's where you could think about BEP supplementation.
Okay, thank you. And I see a related question to go on with this theme. Someone asked, do these recommendations apply equally to pregnant women attending routine ANC and pregnant women in emergency humanitarian settings, or are there any nuances? And either one of you could answer that.
Maybe I will go first. So the recommendation from WHO side, it's since it's part of the ANC package, of course, it's for the routine antenatal care. But that's also to say, because we know that antenatal care happens also in many forms, how it happens in routine antenatal care or how it happens in emergencies. So not to exclude that, it's also to include that context. We are including some of the considerations for humanitarian emergencies based on the evidence or based on the best practices we have seen in different programs. But primarily, WHO implementation guidance is really looking into routine antenatal care. And there are some other guidance by other agencies like UNICEF has put forward for maternal nutrition in general for humanitarian emergencies. Over.
Yes, thank you. Ranadip, do you have additional thoughts on this?
I think Rimu has covered this area. Thank you.
Thank you as well. And I think if my team has a link to the UNICEF guidance, I think we can provide that in the chat. Rimu mentioned that they suggest MMS and BEP in humanitarian settings. Is there evidence and experience in providing BEP to preconception women, particularly those identified as underweight and planning for pregnancy? So Ranadip, I see you provided some insights, and I think your study, the WING study, has some exciting findings. Would you like to share more details on that?
Yeah. So as a principle, as I said earlier, and I will start that way, that 50% of women enter into a pregnancy with already a nutritionally depleted condition. So what we did in WINGS, and probably you can share the link of the study. I think all should we read about the study. We had a preconception intervention where we screen and treat some nutritional or medical conditions. So I will talk about the nutritional condition only here, where I screen for undernutrition and we manage them, and also we screen for anemia and manage them during preconception. And as a part of management of low BMI, we provided them a locally prepared snacks, which constitute of 500 kilocalorie energy and 12 to 14 gram proteins who had BMI between 16 to 18.5. And those who had BMI less than 16, that means severe undernourished, they got the double supplement for a period of 3 months. And thereafter, every 3 months, we used to have their weight to see how they are responding. And similarly, those who had anemia, they got management. Then when they enter into the pregnancy, as because we had their early BMI, and another very important point now we'll talk about, in many of the countries where this BP supplementation goes, it's universal throughout pregnancies. But we know biologically the requirement differs in second and third trimester. And this requirement depends on the gestational weight gain. Our Indian Council of Medical Research suggests that during the second trimester, the requirement of energy, additional energy and protein in second 10 kilocalorie energy and additional 2 to 3 gram protein. And in the third trimester, that translates to 400 kilocalorie energy and almost a 20 to 25 gram protein. So what we did with WINGS, we developed the locally prepared snacks in a way that in the second trimester, the pregnant women should receive this 200 kilocalorie energy and 2 gram protein and some animal protein through milk or egg. And in the third trimester, we also did the same thing, 400 kilocalorie energy and 20 gram protein and milk. But those who had BMI more than 25 kg per meter square, that means more overweight, we didn't provide any BEP supplementation during pregnancy. They only received high quality protein, that means milk or egg. And in addition to that, those who had BMI less than 18 gram, like 18.5, they receive some additional locally prepared snacks. And in addition to that, we used to monitor the gestational weight gain based on IOM criteria. And if they had inadequate gestational weight gain, they receive some additional energy. So the point what I'm trying to say, it's not only BP, it's an personalized care. Those who need more, they get. Those who didn't require, they didn't get. So this is the way we implemented in Wings, and as you all know, some of you all already know that we got a very positive impact of this comprehensive package of intervention, where we showed almost 25% reduction of low birth weight and 30% reduction of small for gestational age babies. Happy to discuss with any of you regarding how we implemented, but as a principle, this we implemented in Wings. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there were a few questions about the birth outcomes, and I'm glad you shared a few insights on that. And my colleagues are trying to find the Wings study, I think. Yeah, Rijuta posted in the chat. Those are the results from the Wings study. And there are a few co-interventions aside from nutrition, as you can see in the title, psychological support, WASH interventions. Were there any others, Ranadip? Any other co-interventions?
So there were 4 components of intervention in Wings, one related to health, one related to nutrition, one related to psychosocial care, and one related to WASH.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a question that it says here, could you
Mihaila,
share?
I just wanted
Yeah.
to quickly come up on the preconception part. Just wanted to say, and there is emerging evidence on the impact of balanced energy and protein dietary supplementation during pre-pregnancy, but right now WHO does not have a recommendation for non-pregnant women. So just wanted to just say it there.
Thank you, Rimu, for that update. There's a question if you could share the recipe for locally produced snacks given to pregnant women. I think Ranadip, you answered that.
Because I currently don't have, but please mail me. I will definitely share with you.
Yeah,
Please.
and we will, just for the audience, we will collect all your questions in the chat, and for anything we don't get to answer live today, we will share them with the speakers, and we will answer and share them back with you. So you will get more answers. But Rimu mentioned earlier that they are planning to provide more examples of recipes.
Right. So I just wanted to say, please stay tuned. Later this year, you will have the implementation guidance where we'll have number of recipes proposed. They may not be actual recipes, but illustrative that you could sort of use alternatives. I think Ranadip's examples from Wings study would be a real, we are also looking into that, the kind of recipes you are looking into for Wings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see a lot of members being interested about the BEP requirements for pregnant women with overweight or obesity. What is the state of evidence, and what is maybe the WHO planning to share on that? Either one, please answer.
Yeah, maybe first I will go with the WHO guidance. So the current recommendation, as I have shown you, the recommendation and also how the remarks read. So the recommendation is for population level, and it's for undernourished populations. And undernourishment, again, to reiterate, undernourishment is defined by underweight women, underweight meaning low BMI, less than 18.5. If you have 20% or higher in a context, whether it's a national level or local level, that's where you can say this is a population with high prevalence of underweight. So that's the context of the recommendation. And once you have identified that population, whether it's in a district, X district you have identified, then it's, so we are including considerations for individual screening. So you say that, okay, this is my population. I know that this population is undernourished, and I'm going to implement BEP supplementation here. And if you have the resources and capacities, and what are the considerations for individual screening? So we are talking about, we are looking into pre-pregnancy BMI, MUAC, and gestational weight gain, if you have that data available, to be able to individually screen women. So these are some of the considerations we're including in the implementation guidance to really help programmers, implementers, to help decide who actually gets them BEP supplements. So of course, when we say that individual screening, we mean that who are identified as undernourished or underweight in those. So that's where we are trying to get the recommendation. But then again, it will pretty much depend on the context the programs are, knowing the factors, knowing the nutrition situation. So we are also trying to give flexibility with this recommendation. So in terms of, just to directly respond to what it means for obese and overweight. So we don't recommend it for obese or overweight, because in the remarks it says, make sure this intervention is given to the one who are most likely to benefit, and we know that who are most likely to benefit.
Would you say perhaps like for pregnant women with overweight and obesity, MMS could be a feasible intervention, or the local standard of care like IFA?
Yeah, depending on the context, depending on the dietary practices and gaps in this area. Yeah.
Yeah. Ranadip, do you have additional insights on that?
I agree with Rimu, and that same strategy we applied in wings also. So this additional energy we didn't provide those who had BMI, additional protein energy didn't provide those who had BMI more than 30. And those who had BMI between 25 to 30, we provided them only additional protein, as in high quality protein with either milk or egg. So we restricted the BEP supplementation only those who had BMI less than 25 because of two issues, as Rimu mentioned, that their adequate or appropriate gestational weight gain is less compared to the normal and low BMI. And they're already entering into a pregnancy with an excessive condition. But regarding the MMS, yes, all received multiple macronutrient supplementation because they may or may not have deficit of some key multiple macronutrients they may not receive through their natural or their day-to-day dietary habits.
Yeah. Thank you both. That was very comprehensive. And now I'll ask a question to either one of you. At what gestational age should BEP supplementation begin, and how does the timing of initiation affect outcomes like birth weight and small for gestational age prevalence?
Let me start. So this has two components. One component is that, and here a little bit two issues are requirement. When a woman is entering into the pregnancy, what is the nutritional status? And then second issue is that what is the trajectory of gestational weight gain of that woman? And as we know, the trajectory of gestational weight gain in the first trimester it is minimal, and thereafter it goes exponentially this way. So that means whenever a woman is being registered for antenatal care, at that time it should be started. And it has been shown that as soon as they start this BP supplement, those who require, because as a part of additional requirement during pregnancy plus as a management strategy, there we have shown that there is a reduction of small for gestational age babies or low birth weight or improvement of birth weight. But one point here I'm trying to mention is that often we do not follow one thing. We try to provide this BP supplementation a single strategy for all. But there may be a 30% of pregnant women during the process of pregnancy or during the duration of the pregnancy, they may require additional because of their inadequate gestational weight gain. That also need to think through. And there will be a 20% of pregnant women or 15 to 20% of pregnant women who will be BMI less than 18.5 plus inadequate gestational weight gain. So probably they may need some additional requirement. So the point what I'm trying to mention here, that we need little bit more research in this aspect, that one supplementation may not fit for all. There may be a proportion of pregnant women who may need maybe twice or maybe 2.5 times because of their inadequate gestational weight gain, or because when they are entering into the pregnancy, they're already a depleted condition. So this strategy, and currently we don't have much evidence. I know there are some studies are being going on, one in Bangladesh, one in Ethiopia, but we may need some more evidence to, if I say, a precision-based medicine or precision-based strategy, we may require. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranadip. And I just want to flag the time. We have 1 minute. So Rimu, do you have any closing remarks or anything to add to this question?
Just to say, I think Ranadip has covered it really well in terms of research. Just from WHO guidance side, the BP supplementation is recommended in undernourished populations in throughout 8 contexts, starting from before 12 weeks. So, and in terms of the evidence, the systematic review did not necessarily look at the timing of initiation and the effect outcomes on birth weight and SGA prevalence. So that's something we cannot answer. But I think Ranadip has covered it really well from the WING study and the experience he has. Thank you.
Thank you both so much, and thank you everyone for all the questions in the chat. And like I said, we will collect all the questions and try to answer them, especially the ones we didn't get to answer. And you will get the recording. It will be posted on our website. My colleagues are sharing where the recording will be available on our website. And stay tuned for the next Coffee and Chai Chat, either on MMS or BP. We will always post these things, and we hope you share further our announcements with your colleagues. And if you'd like to be a member of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, please see the details either shared with you on the chat or on this slide. And follow the Macronutrient Forum on X or Twitter and LinkedIn for additional news. And with that, I'd like to thank the speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today on this very informative Coffee and Chai Chat. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.